Hello, good evening. I'm Melissa Idris and you're watching Agenda AWANI. Joining me on the show today, I have Hamza Deirawi, who's the Public Relations Officer of Aman Palestin in Gaza. Now, he's here today to talk to us a little bit about the situation in Palestine and what Aman Palestin is doing in supporting projects there in Palestine. Welcome to the show, Hamza.
Thank you.
Well, it's good to have you here. But before we begin talking about the good work that Aman Palestin is doing, maybe you can give a little bit of background first about the organization for the viewers perhaps who are not so familiar with it.
Well, thank you for this interview, and it's my pleasure to be meeting you today. Aman Palestin was set up in 2004 in Malaysia, and its main objective is to support the Palestinian issue in Palestine. And Alhamdulillah, after several convoys and delegates visiting Gaza, have set up the office of Aman Palestin in Gaza in 2009.
Okay.
And the main objective of Aman Palestin is to support the Palestinian issue and to provide humanitarian aid as a part of the responsibility of the people of Malaysia towards their brothers and sisters in Palestine. So after establishing the office in Palestine, the collected donations by Aman Palestin in Malaysia is transferred to the Office of Palestine, so the Office of Palestine implements the projects for the needy people and to help the community in Palestine.
Okay, so 2004 you said, so it's been 15 years since it was first established here in Malaysia. Talk to us about what Aman Palestin has accomplished in that 15 years.
Well, in those 15 years in Palestine, basically, has put imprint of the people of Malaysia in different parts of Palestine. In Jerusalem, Masjid al-Aqsa, we yearly implement the Ramadan charity project that we sponsor iftar meals for the people inside Masjid al-Aqsa and sahur meals also to make the people stationed and their existence is daily in Masjid al-Aqsa. Also provided several other projects like doing training courses and teaching and sponsoring schools also inside Masjid al-Aqsa. This is for Masjid al-Aqsa, but in Jerusalem and in the West Bank also have implemented many other projects, basically relief projects and providing aid and kafala projects for orphans. In Gaza, have implemented Masjid al-Shafi'i, one of the biggest masjids that was destroyed by the Israeli occupation, and one of 73 masjids were completely destroyed by the Israeli occupation during their aggressions on Gaza. So rebuilding Masjid Imam al-Shafi'i, rebuilding Masjid al-Qassam in Khan Yunis, rebuilding around 10 kindergartens to help the educational sector, and rebuilding Dar al-Fadila Orphans School that was bombed by the Israeli occupation also. Even they are targeted the orphans, so they targeted their school. Aman Palestin rebuilt this school. Okay. And one of the most prominent projects, building the Malaysia Quran School, which is the first Malaysian school to be built in Palestine by the donations of the people in Malaysia. Besides tens of other projects that have long life assets that will remain in Palestine forever, having the Malaysian flag and having the imprints, as I said, of the people of Malaysia, so the people of Palestine could see the efforts of the people in Malaysia.
That's amazing. And that was what I was going to ask you. I mean, so you talked about humanitarian aid, right? So that's aid that will be, on an ongoing basis, that's required almost daily, which is something that the fundraising is doing here in Malaysia. But also, as you said, the kind of tangible assets, so the rebuilding of Palestine, and that means that there are, mosques and buildings and schools that will be, for the future of Palestine and Palestinians. So how is it that Malaysia came to be such a I guess, such a huge help or helping hand when it comes to Palestine? I mean, 2004, so it's been 15 years. Talk to me about the role of Malaysia in helping rebuilding Palestine and why Malaysia feels the, I guess, kindred spirit to help.
Well, I'd like to use this chance to thank all the people of Malaysia, as the people of Malaysia are of the rare countries that is always helping Palestine. and the people of Malaysia are always standing besides the people of Palestine, while the international community, they turn their back to the Palestinian issue. And this comes that the people of Malaysia have something inside, in their hearts. They believe that they do their role towards the Palestinian issue, and they are helping the people of Palestine. And through these 15 years, Aman Palestin in Malaysia has spread and opened the branches in all the states of Malaysia to reach all people in Malaysia who wants to support or contribute the people of Palestine in any ways. So the idea of Aman Palestin and spreading in Malaysia has reached to almost everyone in Malaysia. And gathering contributions and sending these donations to the people of Palestine. And we always ask the world that you have to do your role towards the issue of Palestine. And thankfully, the people of Malaysia, they are doing this part of supporting. And to be honest, not only the financial support that helps the people of Palestine, but the moral support. Just smiling into the faces of the people of Palestine, praying for them, making dua for them, this helps them a lot and makes them that they are not alone in the struggling of facing the occupation, but we have people who are taking care of you and caring for you and thinking of you.
That's wonderful. We'll touch a little bit on the international community's response to the situation in Palestine, but can we get into that? I want to know what the current situation is, in Palestine, in the Gaza Strip these days. What is happening there? Can you give us an update?
Well, I could say that in Gaza and in Palestine generally, or the Palestinian issue is living its worst days ever since the occupation since 1948. Totally crisis in Palestine. You just imagine that Gaza Strip, 2 million living in 360 square kilometers, and those people are living under siege for more than 12 years. So they are blockaded in this tiny piece of land, the sea in front of them, the Israeli occupation is behind them, and they have no one but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be on their side. And on this, for 12 years, the slope of life is becoming down, and long years ago we have reached the zero. Now we are under zero or in minus, because the hospitals have been crisis, no medical equipment. More than 50% of the medicines are not allowed to enter to Gaza by the Israeli occupation. Education sector is failing these days because students are not able to go abroad, who apply for universities abroad for education, so they cannot have their chance because they are trapped in Gaza and they don't have the chance to travel abroad. And if they have the chance to travel abroad, they won't think of coming back for a vacation, because if they come back, then they will lose their opportunity of education. Same thing for those who lost their jobs, and same thing for those who are sick. And because of the situation in Gaza is very difficult for the hospitals, they cannot have the surgeries inside Gaza, so they have to travel abroad. And tens of patients have died while they're waiting for their turn to come to pass the checkpoint, either within Rafah through Egypt or within Israel to go to the West Bank, to the other side of Palestine. So tens of people, either they have died while waiting for their turn to be approved, and or their cases have become worse. And just imagine also that people of Gaza are having electricity only 8 hours a day. Of the 24 hours of the day, we get electricity only 8 hours a day.
It's rationed.
Yeah, in best conditions, we have 8 hours. Sometimes we get 6 hours, and sometimes we have 4 hours. And this is because, and this is because the Israeli occupation is controlling the borders to import the fuel to generate the power station. So they only import very little amounts of fuel, very little amounts of products, very little amounts of goods, very little amounts of medicines. And this is reflected on all sectors of life in Gaza. It's reflected on the agricultural side that is failing in Gaza. It's reflected on the economical life that people in Gaza, just imagine that almost 45% are unemployed.
45% are unemployed?
Yeah.
Hamza, is it mainly a young population or is it an aging population?
Well, 30% of the Palestinian community is young. So they are capable of being worked. They are fully skilled, but they don't have the chance They are full of skills, they are educated. And to let you know that the people of Palestine are the most educated people around the world. The illiteracy rate is less than 2%.
Wow.
Yeah, and even despite the difficult situation, but the people of Palestine are educated. They have the skills of doing office jobs, the skills as mechanics, as carpenters. They have all the skills. But the problem, the Israel occupation has destroyed all the manufacturing facilities, all the factories, and all the facilities to enable them to have job for their daily living.
Hamza, you grew up there, right? And this is where you live. This is home. How has the situation changed, in you growing up compared to today?
Well, I was born near an Israeli settlement or an Israeli colony. So through my birth till 2005, since in 1989 till 2005, I have witnessed the daily torturing of the Israelis to the Palestinians. I have seen it in my own eyes. The Israelis have raided our house several times. They have bulldozed our land twice. And they stormed tens of the people's houses in Gaza, and this is happening now every day in the West Bank and Jerusalem. So I have witnessed the real torture of the Israelis to the Palestinians. When I had to go to school, the checkpoint just 5 minutes out of my house, but I have to go around 6-hour journey just to reach my school, which is on the other side of the checkpoint, while I just can pass 5 minutes of the checkpoint. So
making it difficult for you to go to school.
Exactly.
Right? Get an education.
Yeah. And the situation today is much worse actually than it was before. Before we had the settlement beside us, but now in 2005 the settlements went out of Gaza and they are surrounding Gaza from behind, leaving Gaza as an open air prison and making 2 million people suffering every day, a new story of suffering, which I always say that the people of Gaza have 2 million suffering stories every day. Because if today this family is suffering from education, tomorrow they are suffering from health problem. The other day they are suffering of financial problem. And I just wanted to focus on the point that 45% of the Palestinians are unemployed, and the other half who are employed, they receive their salaries only 50% every 40 days, and sometimes every 45 or 50 days.
Why is that?
Because the Israeli occupation is imposing siege on the financial flow into Gaza and to the West Bank, to the Palestinian Authority and on Gaza. So there is no source of income for the people of Palestine. The only source of income and the money available is enough for the 45% or 50% of the salaries. And this is only for those who are employed. What about the others who are unemployed and they don't have any source of income? 80% of the people of Palestine these days are depending on international aid for their daily living.
And is that aid coming? You said there were, blockages and, I guess, a roadblock or funnels. So is the aid coming from international help?
Yeah, usually it comes, but it doesn't come the quantities that we need. So if the people of Palestine, they need 1,000 tons of kind of fuel or kind of aid, they will only allow 200 tons. So they allow less than a quarter of the amounts needed for the people of Palestine to make them fully dependent on the Israeli occupation and to make them always in need and to make them always in a crisis, to live a crisis and to end up with another crisis.
All right, we're going to continue our conversation about the situation in Palestine in just a couple of minutes. Make sure you stay tuned to Agenda AWANI. Welcome back to Agenda AWANI. I'm Melissa Idris. Thank you for watching. I've got with me on the show today Hamza Deirawi, who is the Public Relations Officer of Aman Palestin. He's based in Gaza. He's giving us an update of the situation in Palestine. Everything you've just told me has moved me so much, and I'm wondering why it is that I haven't heard these stories being told in the media. how would you characterize the coverage of, you talk about the stories of Gaza, the sufferings that you've witnessed firsthand. Is it being translated into mainstream media today?
Well, to be honest, the international community is not doing his job in covering what's happening in Palestine, because maybe they are controlled, or especially the Western, they are controlled by the United States and by the Israelis, who don't want the Palestinian story to be revealed to the world. So they only show the Israeli story, or they only show part of the story which helps the Israelis and doesn't cover the whole story. And they want to make the people of Palestine being trapped there in jail and without any coverage. And even we try to break this siege by the journalists who are working in Gaza to take these pictures and to document the Israeli crimes against the Palestinians and send it to the international community, maybe sharing on social media, and to volunteer and share it with the international news agencies. But even those journalists who are doing their job, they're being killed. And lately was the story of Yasser Mortaja. He's one of the last crimes against the journalists in Gaza. He's doing his job. He's wearing the vest, and it's very clear, a press sign, and he's having his camera and moving around and trying to take pictures and document the Israeli crimes. But they wanted to quit him. So how to stop him from doing his work? Just kill him. And they have killed him. Left his family suffer the absence of their father, especially his two-year-old son. And and the others who are protected by the international community, like the medics, like the ambulance crews, like the doctors, they are also being targeted in Palestine. Lately, also, Razan al-Najjar is a lady, 24 years old volunteer, and she's wearing the vest as a medic. And her job is to save or provide first aid for the people who get injured. But then she saved tens of Palestinians' lives who got injured, and she provided first aid till the ambulance come and evacuate them to a hospital. But she wasn't able to save her own life, because the Israelis just wanted to quit her from doing her job just to kill her.
Well, these stories are important, and I think what you're doing, so, you coming to this part of the world through Aman Palestin, sharing this. Talk to me about the messaging. You mentioned social media. I'm guessing that could be a huge help in getting the Palestine story out. What is the message that you bring to when you come from Palestine to Malaysia through Aman Palestin? What are you telling Malaysians and the rest of the world? Because I understand you're also going to Indonesia, so other countries within this region. What are you telling us here? Well,
coming to Malaysia from Palestine, I have two messages. Message of appreciation to the people of Malaysia, and message of hope. The message of appreciation for the people who keep supporting Palestine and standing with the just people with the oppressed people against the oppressor, and standing with the occupied against the occupier. And the message of hope that this support will continue to support the people in their steadfastness in Palestine in facing the occupation. And what I would like the people of Malaysia to do for Palestine, the minimum thing they can do is to perform dua, to pray for them, and to share on social media what's happening, because the official media is not mentioning this, especially the Western media. And social media is very effective. And even social media, we in Palestine are being fought by this. Facebook is censoring thousands of Palestinian pages and shutting down thousands of pages and accounts that are working for the Palestinian issue and sharing what's happening in Palestine. So it's a good chance for the people in Malaysia, Indonesia, and the international community to share what's happening in Palestine. And those who, because hundreds of people from Gaza and Palestine are updating in English, so the people in the world would understand what's happening. And it's a good chance for those people to translate into their local languages, to raise awareness on behalf of the, to deliver the message on behalf of the Palestinians. And this is one of the least things one could do for the people of Palestine, so we could feel that there is someone outside of Palestine is caring and willing to listen of what's happening in Palestine.
Has the Muslim world been supportive enough of the situation in Palestine?
Well, this is a difficult question, but if by doing their role, no. Because the Muslim world now is not united. And whenever they are not united, then the people of Palestine are being ignored because they have other priorities and their internal conflicts. And to remind everyone that Palestine is not for the Palestinians only. Masjid al-Aqsa in Palestine, which is being colonized every day and being stormed every day, doesn't belong to the Palestinians only. It belongs to the Muslims all over the world. And not only the Muslim holy sites, there are the Christian sites also in Palestine are suffering the same as the Muslims. So I would like to say, you don't have to be a Muslim to act for Palestine. You have to be a human, because Christians are suffering the same as Palestinians and the same as Muslims in Palestine. So if you have a human sense, you have to act for Palestine. If you have a human sense, then you see the oppressed people are being suffering there and being killed every day on the checkpoints, then you have to act for the people of Palestine. And excuse me to share this story that it just happened recently in Palestine. Only 3 weeks ago, this old lady going back on one of the Israeli checkpoints to her house. And then they suspected her and they stopped her, and then they were screaming at her and miscommunication with her, so they shot her in the leg. 55 years old lady. And then she was calling for help for the ambulance to save her. The Palestinian ambulance arrived at the checkpoint, but the Israelis refused to let this Palestinian ambulance to arrive to the lady and to provide first aid and take her to hospital. And the soldiers were surrounding her. They left her bleeding for 30 minutes on the ground until she passed away. And this is one of thousands of Palestinians are being killed and tortured in this way. So just imagine, I'm sharing only one story, but if you want to talk about Palestine, every Palestinian house in Palestine has one or more suffering stories.
Because everyone has been through a lifetime worth of tragedy and suffering, and I can't imagine, I can't put myself in your position, and the courage you must show to talk about this repeatedly on a daily basis. This is your job, to spread the message. But do you feel hopeful for the future? What is the future that you hope for Palestine?
Well, I hope that the people of Palestine will live as humans as the other countries of the world, because in different parts of the world, they are treating animals better than the Israelis are treating Palestinians these days. And I hope that my children and the children of Palestine will grow up in peace, like other countries, will go to schools peacefully, will not be assaulted on their way to school, just like the latest is yesterday, this Palestinian child going to school and he was beaten by the settlers, by the Zionists, and tens of stories that they run over them, but the latest was just yesterday. They kidnapped this child, before yesterday, sorry, on Thursday, they kidnapped this child while he was coming back home from the school. They beaten him up, they terrorized him, and they left the scars on his face of the torture and the beating. So I hope that the people of Palestine will live in dignity as well as the other people. And to tell you what, we are living in dignity because we are not giving we're not giving up our issue, and we're not leaving our land anymore. They are killing us and they are torturing us to leave our land, but we're not going to leave, because this is our land. We are the originals, the origin people who are living in Palestine, and we will continue our struggle to the end of our life. And that's why thousands are sacrificing their lives. Thousands are sacrificing their souls. Thousands are in jails, in Israeli jails, because of the struggle of Palestine. Thousands have been amputated, their limbs amputated, and they have sacrificed parts of their bodies, as well as the houses that have been destroyed by the Israelis. And imagine that you have been living in this house for a long time, and suddenly they force you to leave the house, to not take anything from this house, and they will bomb this house in front of your eyes, and you will be illiterate, homeless, and your suffering will be illiterate, happens at this moment when you become homeless. So the hope is to live as peaceful as any other country in the world. And when I'm sleeping with my child, with my children, and with my family, I won't wake up in the life after, because the Israelis have raided my house, killed me in the house, and bombed the house over the heads of the Palestinians.
You just want to live in peace. So
living in peace is the minimum thing one could ask.
Can you tell our viewers, if they are moved to help, where can they go to contribute to the cause?
Well, in Malaysia, everyone, and in Indonesia, everyone is welcome to donate to Aman Palestin, because Aman Palestin, as I just mentioned, it has its office in Palestine. And in Palestine, we work in two ways. One way to benefit the individuals, and one way to benefit the community. Benefiting the community, building these buildings that serve the community, like the school, like the mosques. And recently, we are going to start with Masjid Sheikh Hijlin, that is destroyed by the Israeli occupation, and we're going to have the first Malaysian hospital in Gaza, inshallah, the mental hospital. And this is one of the hopes that the people of Malaysia and Indonesia are giving to the people of Palestine. So we have the Indonesian hospital, we have the Qatari hospital, we have the European hospital, but soon we will have the Malaysian hospital, inshallah, the mental hospital in Gaza. And the other side, the individual help is the sponsoring of the Kafala orphans Kafala project for as we in Palestine have 100,000 orphans these days, and the number is increasing as we are just talking now, because the more they kill Palestinians, the more the orphans will become. And Aman Palestin, alhamdulillah, is sponsoring around 2,000 of those orphans. Yeah, and we hope to find more sponsors, yeah, to cover some of their needs. We won't cover we won't replace their fathers or their parents, but at least we could help. Yeah, we could help something to them.
All right. Okay, well, thank you so much, Hamza. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. What we're going to do is we're going to flash the information on the screen. If you are interested in helping, this is where you can get more information. That's all the time we have for this episode of Agenda Awani. I'm Melissa Idris signing off. Thank you so much for watching.